Most people think they know what sex is, but if I asked you to define it, could you? Hey class, welcome to Around Sex Education, the sex education you deserve that actually makes sense. I'm your host and guide to getting it on, Sin. And today, my co-host is Brooklyn.
Hey, you remembered me.
Hi! This podcast is a sex education resource intended for an adult audience. We'll be having real, inclusive conversations about sexuality, pleasure, relationships, gender, identity, and more. Some topics may be considered explicit or sensitive. Our goal is to break the stigma and provide the kind of education many of us never got. We're learning too, and we're bringing what we learned here so we can all grow together. You deserve to know what this is about so you can make an informed choice to listen, or not. That's what consent looks like, even here. So I have done you all a disservice. I was thinking the other day, I need to make an episode about how to talk about sex. But then I also realized we actually haven't talked about sex itself. We've talked about arousal, attraction, desire, the penis, the vulva, the vagina. We've talked about a lot of things that relate to sex, but not sex itself.
I've been wondering what it is this whole time. I was like, she keeps saying it. Who knows what it means? Not me.
Oh, yeah. So this episode is called, Wait, What is Sex? A Beginner's Guide to Understanding Sexual Intercourse.
Yay. Should people that already know what sex is still listen to this?
Yeah, we had discussed that there's not really a clear definition of sex. People think that sex is only penile-vaginal penetration, but that is not inclusive to all the different kinds of sexualities out there who have different kinds of sex. Remember that one time I asked you what counts as sex, and you're like, oh, it's like penetration.
Yeah.
And I was like, what about lesbians? And you're like, oh.
They can still penetrate, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
Because for me, sex is a religious definition because that's how I was taught it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my answer based on that. But then I feel like because there's a workaround then, if you're religious and you're like, I want to have other types of sex.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, that's the loophole.
Other types of sex were acceptable, but not penile-vaginal.
Well, I think that's how you get around because there's the made-up thing that it's, premarital sex is a sin. So it's like, okay, but if it's only P and V, then we could do other stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't count.
Yeah.
The Lord isn't looking.
Can I tell you that if at some point the podcast gets bigger, I really want the people that listen to be sinners to like CIN.
I love that. That's like targeted towards me. Like I identify so much with that. Just drop the merch already.
All right. So now that you have more of a definition of sex, is it still the religious aspect of it?
What do you mean?
Like now that we've talked about it more,
has my opinion of what sex is?
How's your definition of sex changed?
I feel like everybody can have their own definition of sex. So whatever it means to those people, that can be sex to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that just like knowing the different types of sex or the different ways you can reach orgasm could be sex for whoever chooses that that's what they want. So I think everybody has their own definition of it. And I think that's okay. You just take the information and make an educated decision that works for you.
So for this lesson, we have 3 subjects plus a pop quiz.
I love the quizzes.
So our lesson plan is we're going to do English, what counts as sex, science, your brain on sex, and then physical education, how to do it, and then your pop quiz. The pop quiz is going to be things that we talk about.
Okay. I love it.
All right. So for English, what counts as sex? We mentioned before, most people think penile-vaginal penetration is the main definition of sex. This is tied to the taboo around sexuality that we discussed in the first episode. There was religious influence that because penile-vaginal intercourse was the only way to procreate at that time, not even now. People can procreate in other ways. Yeah. But because this was the primary way to procreate back then, it became the only acceptable form of sex. And that has followed us till now. However, we're a lot more open-minded now. We have a lot more resources. People can have children. They can adopt children. You can have IVF. There's so many other ways to have them and not have them.
Yeah, also prevent having them.
And therefore, penile vaginal penetration, while it is a version of sex, shouldn't be the only one in your definitions by this point. penile vaginal penetration being the default definition of sex is a bad thing is because it's really heteronormative. It only focuses on a very male and female view of like, this is the only way to be in the world, which is not okay.
Mhm.
It's not inclusive of those who are queer, gay, lesbian, trans. It is just a very non-inclusive.
It feels like a very outdated, maybe,
Mhm.
definition and based in religion, because if the goal is to have kids and reproduce, that's kind of what churches wanted, right? So they could grow. So I think that definition of it is outdated for what the world that we live in right now.
Right. Super outdated. Like several.
So lame. If you're
several-
not having anal, you're not living.
Yeah. And then the other reason why I think it's important to define sex is because if you don't, it creates confusion. And there's already so much confusion enough as it is.
That's a really good point too, because I like currently the way education was. I don't know if this has been updated. When I was a child, I was in a Catholic school and we were being educated. It was just penis and vagina sex. That was the only discussion of it. And so I can't imagine if maybe I'm not heterosexual at all, that then I'm like, yo, I don't want to do that. Like,
Mhm.
what can I do? And without having that brought into a classroom, or if you were lucky enough that your parents talked to you about it, that means you're learning from mainstream media, and it's probably not the healthiest definition.
Yeah. Right. Sex can include oral, masturbation, anal, penetration in multiple different ways, and then mutual stimulation.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I'm already learning something because I didn't consider mutual stimulation sex. So I also didn't consider masturbation sex. See, this is really important that people listen to this episode, even if they think they know what sex is, because I've been listening to every episode and I'm learning things still.
Yeah. When people talk about sex, it could include these things. So it doesn't feel right to just act like these aren't part of it, you know?
Right. Because I guess how we define sex could now, like by this, it could be, it doesn't even need to be reaching orgasm. That was what I was going to say. And then as I started the sentence, I was like, no, it could just be like sexual arousal as a loose definition of sex. This is very confusing now because there's so many different ways you could define sex. So I think looking at this slide, my definition 2 minutes ago was very different than what I see on the slide. So I think this is really hard now, and it's good that you're bringing hard now. Huh? It's good that you're bringing this up because there are so many different ways you can define sex, and I think maybe traditionally it's been defined as reproduction, or like that's the goal.
Mhm.
And in a romantic way, sex can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah. I would also say soaking is sex for any
Any Mormon listeners?
Mormon listeners.
Were the analytics in Utah by chance? I didn't see.
You can't, it doesn't show state by state.
I love Mormons. If you're listening, I love you guys. Soaking is definitely sex, and that's okay. I feel like that was the craziest thing that I've ever heard. Being not considered sex. I was like, in the textbook, I like vividly remember what sex was. And it said the penis is inserted in the vagina. There was nothing about thrusting or anything else. So like they either have a different book or they're lying to themselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's both.
That's what
Probably both.
they do have a different book. They have King James version of the Bible.
The interesting one doing this episode, I was like, if all of these things are included in sex, then what's included in rape?
Oh, oral copulation and all that is also included.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that.
Mm-hmm.
So like the things
That's
that
a
happen.
good definition.
Yeah. Because the things that happened to me as a kid, I always used to be like, oh, I was sexually assaulted. Because I always thought rape was penile vaginal penetration.
Yeah.
But no, like oral sex is
Forced oral sex. Yeah.
So I was like, oh.
Is a sex event. That kind of clears all of that up, actually. If you look at it that way, of what is a crime to do against somebody that they don't want to.
Right.
That really helps define it.
Right. What with someone being not okay with if you did it to them.
That means it could be sex.
Right. Right. Great definition there.
Thank you. It was very dark. I couldn't.
So it was a general overview of what is defined in sex. But why does it matter? So it matters because not defining sex causes a lot of problems. It doesn't give people the agency to establish clear boundaries. How are you supposed to establish boundaries if you don't have the information?
Right.
It keeps consent in a confusing gray area because especially if we're not talking about sex, people would be like, oh, do you want to hook up? Well, someone could be like, oh, do they just want to make out? Do they want to have sex?
I think one of the biggest arguments for sex education is the fact that children need to understand what it is so that they can give people like, no, I don't want to do this. I know what this is.
Right.
I know that it's not my fault. I'm going to go to somebody.
Right. It increases the risks of STIs and unwanted pregnancy because
they're taught abstinence only. So they're not taught how to protect themselves against STIs and all that.
Right. It ignores people of different sexualities and their sexual behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It perpetuates the stigma around sex, which we hate, and reinforces the myth that the purpose of sex is reproduction.
Yeah, especially in religious institutions. That is definitely, I feel like, what is emphasized.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not it was intentional, I feel like the public sectors kind of followed suit because they were like, well, we don't know how to educate on what sex is, so we'll just take whatever you're using and kind of guide it from there.
Right. Similar in the English section, as we've defined it, I thought one of the funny things would be to add the different types of euphemisms for sex.
I love this.
So here are some of the popular ones. So hooked up, slept together, did it, went all the way, Netflix and chill, making love, knocking boots, and feed the kitty.
That's a good one.
The one that I wanted to bring up because I genuinely always thought this was so confusing, but it was the first, second, and third base in terms of like baseball.
I think that's like hooking up where it means different things to different people.
Right. So what did you assume first base was?
So I assumed first base was just kissing.
Mm-hmm.
Second base was boob grabbing, and then you would clarify whether it was above or below the shirt. Third base was like fingering or hand job if you're a girl and a guy or a guy and a guy. And then home run obviously was like sex.
See, mine was completely different. So I thought first base was making out. I thought second base was any sort of like touch. So yeah, I thought it was still under the shirt and touching.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought third base was oral sex.
Oh.
And then I thought home run was going all the way.
Yeah.
So my definition of it, I was like, where does oral then fall into?
Yeah.
So that's what.
That's part of the home run. In my theory, that's always included in the home run.
Yeah. What are your favorite euphemisms for sex?
So I like fun. I think they're very funny. I like to say like do sex. Like, does somebody want to do sex with me? And then I sometimes like to change the X to GGS and segs. So those are some of my personal favorites. I also like do the nasty or do the dirty. That's just a fun appreciation that I have.
I also found a list of different euphemisms around the world.
Oh, exciting.
I'm going to try and pronounce them. So I'm going to tell you where they're from, what it is, and then what they mean.
Okay.
In British English, there's a phrase called bashing the bishop.
Cute.
What do you think it is?
Bashing the clit. Like hitting the clit as you're pounding.
It's just general masturbation.
I was so confident in my answer that your laugh really threw me off. I was like, oh, I got this. Because that was like the bishop hat in my head.
Yeah, so you want to think penis?
No, I thought the clit. And like he's smashing against it.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is poner la tarta en la horna.
That was so long. Say it again. There was so many words.
It's in Spanish. It's poner la tarta en el horno.
Put the tart in something. In the oven?
Oh, it's to put the cake in the oven. Yeah, Spanish. It's just sexual intercourse. The next one is, an American one, is ride the flagpole.
Oh, cute. I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
We love our flags.
Right. In Hindi, there's another phrase. This phrase is past tense only. Kaam ho gaya.
I think that is like hit it and acquit it.
So this one means it's past tense for sex, but its work has been completed.
Okay. I was kind of close.
And then rooting is an Australian phrase for sexual intercourse.
I hate that one. I'm going to be honest.
Get more creative.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Netflix and chill, we already mentioned.
Is that one only American?
It says American and British.
Okay, they're
Yeah.
using it too.
Yeah. Foyer is to blow air with the bellows, which is that thing that you use in a chimney.
Oh,
to blow
not
air.
like blowjobs.
That one is just means sexual intercourse as well.
Okay.
This one is German. Die Mutterschrubben.
I feel like, regardless of what I heard, I think it has to have something to do with sausage because it's German. It has to.
It's actually to scrub one's carrot.
Okay.
And it's a term for masturbation.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And then bumping uglies.
Ugh, I hate that one. I have a friend that says it all the time.
It's a British one. And it's sexual intercourse, but it's like calling genitals ugly.
Yeah, I hate that one. He says it all the time.
Scopare, just too sweet. It's an informal Italian idiom for sexual intercourse. This is a Portuguese one. It's jogar bilhar de bolso, which is Portuguese for to play pocket pool, which is an innuendo for masturbation.
I like that one. Pocket pool. It's cute.
Yeah, those are different ways to discuss sex in other countries.
I like that every country also has like another phrase for it.
Except Australians do better.
Yeah, they have to have something else. That's probably nobody's saying that. Please tell me no one's saying that.
Yeah, if you're Australian and you're listening, comment and let us know if there's any other fun.
Yeah, give us
euphemisms.
give us the other ones.
All right, now we're going to go into science. So your brain on sex. Specifically, we're going to talk about two things. So we're going to be talking about what parts of your brain is activated during sex and why. What chemicals are being released in your brain during sex. And then we're also going to talk about how other substances affect you while having sex.
Okay, great. I like it.
Yeah. So we've mentioned this in one of the previous episodes, but your brain is your biggest sex organ. So what happens in your brain during sex? Well, there's a few things. So sex is very emotional, hormonal, reward driven. And when you have sex, you have less inhibitions. Your brain is shifting from thinking to feeling and experiencing throughout the whole process of it. It's happening in your body and it's being coordinated by multiple parts of your brain working together. The parts include the hypothalamus, which triggers arousal through hormones, the amygdala that processes emotions and attraction signals, and the nucleus accumbens is part of your reward system, which is what releases the dopamine when something feels pleasurable.
So the amygdala is the emotion center, which I feel like is interesting just because I think it's hard to not have any emotions at all involved in sex. And I think now, obviously, we know why.
You're experiencing the emotional response, hormonal changes, and reward signals all at the same time.
Question. The hypothalamus is also memory, right?
It's the body's main control center. The prefrontal cortex, that is the part of your body that is in charge of like decision making and focus and all of that stuff. That quiets down.
I feel like that makes sense because people take risks when they're horny and you're like, why? But I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the chemicals that get released in the brain, there's two significant ones. Most people know these, but the first one is dopamine. Dopamine is usually called the pleasure chemical, but it's actually more about wanting. It drives anticipation and makes you think like, oh, I want that. Like, give me that.
So it is the dopamine before the reward, or the reward, you also feel the reward with dopamine?
Dopamine is before. It's usually before. It still gets released leading up, like the anticipation of, you're going to get it.
Okay. Oh,
this is why novelty sex is so exciting. Like when you're dating someone new and you want to have sex with them all the time.
But isn't dopamine still released later on too, even when you've been with the person?
Dopamine is released anytime like you want. Dopamine isn't specific to sex.
Right. Sorry. What I mean is like later on down the relationship, does the dopamine amount change during sex?
You get higher dopamine spikes earlier in a relationship.
That's what my question was. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's more anticipation early on than there is later.
Like kind of like when you've been together for so long, you're kind of like, okay, we're probably gonna have
You know the
sex,
choreography.
Yeah. The other thing that releases is oxytocin. This is often called the bonding hormone. It's released during close physical contact, including sex, and is associated with feelings of trust and connection. So this is why sex becomes emotionally meaningful for some people and not just physically pleasurable.
And I believe oxytocin is the one that's also released during breastfeeding, right? For the bonding,
Mhm.
same hormone.
Yeah. So, and I do the 6-second kiss thing.
Oh, right.
We got it from the Gottman's 8 Dates book. And they said when you leave your partner and then you see your partner again, you should kiss for 6 seconds because that's like how much time it takes to release that bonding hormone in your body. So it just helps you feel like closer and connected.
So there's a lot of ways to get oxytocin.
Yeah. The other way to do that is hug someone for 26 seconds.
Oh, the
So-
hug has to be longer. So interesting.
Yeah.
I guess there's more clothes. Well, does
like-
it matter if there's clothes or not?
It doesn't matter if there's clothes or not. No, it's just the being held.
So it doesn't even have to be the skin to skin. It's just being held.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's like the comfort of being held.
That makes sense.
But not everyone experiences oxytocin in the same way. Your emotional experience depends on the context, who you're with, how safe you feel, and what the experience means to you.
That is really interesting, actually.
So all this to say that arousal starts in the brain. So your thoughts are obviously in your brain, and your brain affects what happens in your body. And that is why your brain is your biggest sex organ.
Yeah. And I think we, on some level, have realized that, I guess, maybe not consciously, but there's phrases like, I'm having dirty thoughts at you. And that's like the starter.
Right. We're going to go into the extras, which is how these 3 different substances affect you. So caffeine.
Okay.
Caffeine,
I didn't even anticipate that being on the list at all.
the only reason it's on the list is because I saw a TikTok video of a girl being like, have you ever had an orgasm while you had a bunch of caffeine? And it's supposed to intensify an orgasm.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. And I've tried it, and I think it's fine. Like, I don't...
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever noticed any difference.
Right. But it's supposed to increase your alertness, increase your heart rate. But if you have too much caffeine, it obviously can give you some anxiety.
Like a panic attack kind of thing.
Yeah. This increased blood flow and sensitivity and focus can make orgasms feel more noticeable, intense, sharp, or heightened. For others, it could just create anxiety or make it difficult to relax, and you need to be able to relax when you have sex. The general rule of thumb with like caffeine and sex is it may help with your orgasm, but it can interfere with the buildup to get there.
Wild.
Yeah.
I would not think caffeine would cause any problems. Or honestly, I guess if I had a ton of caffeine, like the anxiety part, but I wouldn't anticipate caffeine having any effect on sex.
The next is alcohol. Alcohol can increase confidence, but the performance might not be there. I feel this is a more common one that people will partake in while having sex. So alcohol will lower your inhibitions and reduce your coordination, but it can also cause you to have a lot less sensitivity in your body. So that disconnect can make sex not as pleasurable. And also there's like a complete confidence that you can have going into it that may not be helpful.
Is the lowered sensitivity what causes like whiskey dick?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That sucks for you guys.
The next one is going to be marijuana or THC. So THC alters your perception for some people. Okay, like alcohol affects people differently, THC affects people differently too. So it can alter perception, increase sensation, but it can also increase or reduce anxiety dependent on the person.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For alters perception, what does that mean?
Everyone's experience with marijuana is so different. And I've met some people who say, like, I started seeing things. Like,
what?
they were or something like that. Like, but it doesn't,
While they were having sex or just.
no, when they're high. Okay. Like, okay. Some people's reactions to getting high aren't always
The same.
The same.
It's, okay. You think it does not increase sensation?
It increases sensation
Yeah.
completely. I think any time I've had sex under the influence of marijuana, it's been some of the best sex.
I agree.
Best sex.
Not the best sex. It's been the best orgasm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The orgasm has always been extremely good.
Yeah. And weird, well, sometimes I feel it in my back, like my upper back.
It's literally a whole body.
Yeah.
It intensifies it extremely, 1,000%. But obviously, if you are someone that is anxious about being high, you're probably going to be anxious while you're high. Like,
I mean, yeah, like There's been a few times where I've gone anxious, but for me, when that happens, it's always my, like, the things that my body does is amplified. So, like, if I have one time I had anxiety that I could feel my toenails growing. It was only my toenails and not my fingernails, and it was really a painful process. But, like, stuff like that is the only type of anxiety I get, but I know other people get, like, really paranoid about other stuff.
That's essentially why I mostly partake in spaces I feel like safe and comfortable,
Right.
So also that's important too. If you're gonna,
Very important, especially if you're doing it during sex.
yeah, make sure it's with someone you feel safe and comfortable with. But if there's at any point your clarity is affected, then consent can be affected too. So this is just a good rule of thumb that if you are gonna take substances, primarily alcohol and marijuana, just be
Cautious.
cognizant of the situation, and no one can fully consent if they don't know what you're asking.
Mhm.
So, any comments? Any thoughts?
I mean, I'm shocked about caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like alcohol is the one that we're all, like, pretty familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And then THC, I feel like less studied in the US at least.
Mm-hmm. There's more and more people trying to study it too, so that's really good.
Yeah.
More doctors. That's good. All right, now it's time for physical education. PE.
I love this graphic. It's so cute.
So this is how to do it. So I can't really tell you exactly, like, do this, do that, because it's really dependent on person to person.
Okay.
We're not going to be learning about positions. We're going to be understanding how the different arrangements change the experience. So there's no right position. It just depends on what works for everyone that's involved.
Okay.
So a position doesn't define good sex. There's no right position. There's just the position that works best for you and works best for the people involved. And positions are just how the bodies are arranged, and they can be applied across all genders, orientations, and types of sex. Different positions shift who has more control, and that can impact the comfort and person's confidence. So what changes with position? Control. This is who sets the pace. The person in control gets to account for, like, the speed, the depth, and the movement.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a nice combination to have.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that can get affected is the angle. So different positions can stimulate different areas of the body. Just also a note for anyone who hasn't listened to the vulva episode and has never seen a vulva. It's not just in the front like a penis. It's a little further down. It's like further. That's why the angle is important, because, again, it stimulates a different part.
Right. And every body, both men and women's bodies, they're all a little bit different. So some angles can be better for some than others.
Stimulation. Not all people experience pleasure from penetration. Some people need external stimulation. And we've already noted this, but in the episode, It's a Vulva, Not a Vagina, which is lesson 3, a lot of people with vulvas need external stimulation to orgasm. So focusing on that clitoris is really important. And if you want to learn more about the clitoris, listen to that episode. Then connection. This also changes with a position. So if you want to have eye contact, if you want to be able to communicate or hear each other, and obviously if you want that physical closeness. And then the last one is accessibility. So what feels comfortable for your body? It depends on how flexible you are. So flexibility, energy level, mobility. So just remember, good sex is adaptable.
Yeah, I like that. And everybody, like, I always feel like everybody at first is, like, figuring out the process.
And
All those things included.
yeah. There are a lot of different types of positions. I'll mention what they're called traditionally, but I haven't labeled them in what we know them as, because those aren't very inclusive of people. And so the first one is a face-to-face. So that could be something like missionary, something seated face-to-face. These are great for having more connection and communication, getting that eye contact, and having, like, emotional closeness. The second one is partner on top. This allows one person to be on top to control the pace and pressure. So partner on top could also mean missionary, but I think in this instances, it's usually the person being penetrated is on top.
That was my first thought. Like, it was associated with that, but I guess technically, like, the missionary, if you flip things, that partner is then on top.
Yeah.
So I guess both could count for that.
Yeah. The ones I have listed, straddling, seated on someone's lap, and then cowgirl. The rear-facing ones change the depth and the angle significantly. There's different types. You can be on all fours, standing, and doggy style is like what everyone knows it as.
Mm-hmm.
And
Does reverse cowgirl not count in that one?
reverse cowgirl too, yeah.
Okay.
And then next one is side by side. This is a good one for just like you're tired. It's low effort. It's more relaxed. Side by side is good for comfort, slower pacing, and accessibility. So just more relaxed, more lower effort. I feel like if you've been going at it for a while and you still want to keep going, but you're a little bit tired, you do side to side.
This is the rest one.
Yeah, but sex isn't one format. It can include all of these things. It can include toys, grinding, non-penetrative intimacy, oral, anal, hands, mutual stimulation, all of it, whatever works for you and whatever you need to make sex enjoyable for you.
This is the best graphic yet.
Yeah, right. This one was my favorite. I was like, oh, yay.
Yeah, so cute.
Yeah, I like this. And she's saying that because there is a banana with a piece of it peeled, and the piece that's peeled is over an eggplant and a cucumber.
And the banana's the big spoon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're all cuddling each other.
very cute.
All right. Sex looks different for everyone. Positions aren't tied to a person's gender or sexuality, so all of these concepts apply to all bodies. Same-sex partners, people with different body types, people that want to use toys. The position doesn't define sex. They just shape the experience. The best position is the one that feels good and makes you feel safe and connected.
Yeah.
All right, pop quiz.
Yay, it's my favorite.
Yay. I feel like this was a really simple episode because it's an easy one to get through because we talk about it all the time.
Right.
So, pop quiz, I have to test your skills. All right, question 1. 2 people say they had sex, but one is referring to oral sex and the other one is referring to penetration. Which of the following is true? A, the person who had oral sex is wrong. B, that sex has one universal definition. C, only penetration counts as sex. Or D, sex doesn't have one definition.
D.
Yes, that's correct.
Aced it.
Question number 2. Which part of the brain becomes less active during sexual arousal? The amygdala, the hypothalamus, the prefrontal cortex, or the nucleus accumbens?
C, the prefrontal cortex.
That's correct. Yeah. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that focuses on decision making and all of that. So that's why it kind of quiets down when you're having sex.
Yeah.
Question number 3. Which hormone is most associated with desire and anticipation? A, oxytocin, B, dopamine, C, serotonin, or D, adrenaline?
B, dopamine.
That's correct. Dopamine is we say desire, but it's the wanting. It's associated with the want.
The chase.
Yes. Question number 4. How can alcohol impact sexual experiences? A, it increases coordination and clarity. B, it lowers inhibitions but can reduce sensitivity. C, has no effect on the brain. D, always improves performance.
B, lowers inhibitions but can reduce sensitivity in cases like whiskey dip.
Correct. And that's a good example. And then number 5, what is the most accurate statement about sex position? A, there is a best position for everyone. B, positions define what counts as sex. C, positions change the experience, not the definition. And D, only certain positions are considered real sex.
C, positions change the experience, not the definition.
Right, that's correct. Great job. 5 out of 5.
Yay, valedictorian.
Woo, woo. All right, so all this to say, sex isn't just one act. It's language, biology, and experience. So what does sex mean to you? You don't have to answer it.
Are you asking me?
No, that was for the audience.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's what I thought.
yeah. So yeah, that's today's lesson. Really easy one, really simple. Again, I'm so sorry we did this one. I've been doing a disservice to all of you. This should have been like, this should have been like 1, and then the why is it taboo should have been number 2, but it's fine.
Oh, I guess, yeah, I didn't, because I was thinking it would be after why is sex taboo, but I guess this would be the best one to have first.
Yeah. But
now is a great time.
yeah, because now more people are listening.
Now that you're getting more listeners, we'll do it. This is the starting point.
Perfect. Well, thanks for listening. Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot of things, all the things I told you about, like that I wouldn't have, like mutual stimulation, wasn't considering that sex at all. So I feel like I learned a lot of what sex can be.
Yeah, that's it for today, class. Have any questions about human sexuality? Submit it anonymously using the link in the show notes. If this episode helped you understand something a little better, share it with a friend, because the best way to destigmatize sex is to talk about it. Follow the show to stay updated on future lessons. And if you want to go deeper, grab the Essential Sex Conversations workbook by joining the newsletter. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!